go. Give everyone a moment to get settled. How is everyone doing this evening, guys? Good to see you all here. Wow, it's been a week, guys. Quite the week. You know, I think the biggest reoccurring message and theme that I've had over the last 14 days, I suppose, is no matter what comes at you, no matter what happens, really find the gratitude and the peace of mind to be happy now. Be happy in the now, because there's always something, you know. So I've gone over uh, the details of everything in my head a little bit. I'm probably going to share more personal details about what's been going on with me and the medical system and how it all just ties in together and how you really see the flaws in all the systems. Which brings me to the biggest concept, question, topic, concern is what I find when you try to be the white sheep, and the more you try to be a white sheep, the more it segregates you and puts you marked and flagged as the black sheep. If you're here watching with us today, obviously you know that we are here with good intentions. You know that we're here to help. And the biggest element to elemental growth is helping people heal, from ourselves, from our pasts, from traumatic events to addictions, which usually are stemmed from traumatic events and our coping mechanisms. And if you're watching with us today, and if you've been with us for a while, you're probably aware that one of our niches, probably our biggest niche, is getting people off things like opiates. The legally prescribed and quote safe for your system, the FDA approved opiates that are something like the leading cause of death going on in the world right now, especially with ever since COVID, between suicides and opiate overdoses. Um, I should know the numbers a little bit better. I can click it in and look it up here for you. Being Elemental Growth's video editor for a while, we actually did a segment on it a while back about the opiate overdose numbers and how it's just skyrocketed. Numbers 2021. Take a look. Anything I can find quickly. Point to my little spiel here. Over 100,000 people died of opiate overdose in a 12-month period, which is a 28.5% increase of prior months. That's for 2021, from 2020 to 2021. So, the point to my little spiel there is the corruption and the battle against the medical system. And when you fight one system, you end up caught up in the other systems. So, what's been going on with me in my life, our life, and my daughter is going back 4 years ago. 4 years ago. She was originally diagnosed with what started as water on the knee in her right leg, and that turned into a debilitating illness. And at the time, we didn't know what was wrong. We noticed it when she just couldn't get up. She couldn't stand up. She really couldn't walk or move around. So I just gotta. She was 4 at the time, so I could just pick her up and move her around. She's tiny, tiny girl, small for her age and small for her size still. And so I didn't think too much of it. And on top of that, she also has a bit of a speech impediment to which communication was definitely limited back when she was 4. So she couldn't explain to us what was wrong, and let alone a 4-year-old understanding their body enough to be able to express the difference between muscle pain, joint pain. Adults have a hard time communicating and expressing what they're feeling emotionally and physically to each other, let alone to medical professionals. So she was diagnosed with idiopathic juvenile arthritis. The definition of idiopathic means they don't know what's causing it. And for years, they actually didn't even know if it was juvenile arthritis. They just kind of took a flying shot in the dark. Hence my discomfort with the whole thing is you have these medical professionals that sick kids, and I mean, not knocking them, they do a wonderful job. And some of the more touching times in my life was when I was donating to the Adopt a Child in Africa or Adopt a Child at Sick Kids. Come on in, bring it in. She's actually coming right now, bringing me something that looks hot and dangerous, coming right to for the laptop. Here she is, here, my little snuggie. So how you feeling today? Yeah, your leg's doing good. I'm actually telling your story. I'm telling your story. Yeah, that is cool. So tell us now, I'm gonna jump to the present moment. Tell us how your leg is right now. Because you were prescribed, you were put on prednisone again, and they've upped your what's called Humira shots, which I'll get into that in a moment. But how have you been the last week or so? Yeah, you running around like crazy, bouncing on stuff, having fun? Yeah, you're having fun. Of course you are. You want to say hi to everyone? Hi, yeah, you're live. Just like when you watch Ashley live stream, you're live to everybody who's watching. Yeah. Yeah, it needs that internet buffer. Live streams do that, but we record it and then we put it up on YouTube. You gonna stay hang out with me for a little bit, or you heading now? Okay. Thank you for the drink. It smells wonderful. Actually, special brain drink. Sounds good. I don't know what's in the brain tea. I just know it tastes good. It smells like mint. Thanks, honey. So, it's been 4 years, and to express my concerns around the issue is that we still are no further ahead now, 4 years into the future than we were 4 years ago. She was put on prednisone, which is a steroid. My understanding of it, which is limited, even though I've done the research, it's more so like an anti-inflammatory painkiller, and she didn't respond to that. So I understand it's not something that you can really be on long term either. I could be mistaken, but there's a lot of stuff that I've been doing the research into, a lot of chemicals and a lot of, yeah, just information overload being a dad. And so when the prednisone didn't take, they put her on methotrexate, which is even more dangerous. Um, so I'm happy that that didn't take, as mean as that sounds. And, so they put her on Humira, which is ideally for, well, the young kids who take it for juvenile arthritis. They always make fun of it, saying it's the old person drug. It's what grandma and grandpa take for their arthritis. But really, it's meant for any age. And my concerns around Humira stem from the cancer warnings on the box. It's clearly marked very clear cut, black and white and dry to that of like a cigarette box. Clear cancer warnings. And it's so cancerous that it is synthetically manufactured to be filled with tumor blockers. And my 8-year-old is on this shit. And worse, she was on, I guess I'll keep going in chronological order. She was on it for, for, I think she was on it for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And she did go into remission and she did get better. Now, I have always attributed, I understand that this does sound a little scientifically fluffy, so to speak, to when COVID started. We were playing soccer and she slipped on the soccer ball and actually twisted her ankle. And that was the first time that I officially sat down with her as a attuned Reiki practitioner, attuned to level 3. I don't like using the term Reiki master because at the end of the day, I've only been doing Reiki for a few years and I really don't know what I'm doing enough to be called a master. I'm quite skillful and what I can do for myself and what I can help other people with, there's still things that are above and beyond what I have learned so far. And what was interesting is when I was raking her ankle from the soccer ball twist and sprain, is within a month later she went into remission and she stayed in full remission for 8 months. I mean, probably longer. I mean, she was in remission for a while and they began to wean her off the Humira. She was off Humira, cleanly off Humira for I think 8 months in total. And she has since relapsed a few months ago. And this is where the systems come into place because I didn't really feel comfortable with her going back on Humira, only to find out that her mother went behind my back and against the court order to proceed with these medical procedures without my knowledge. And I'm not saying one way or the other. If something's going to make a difference and it's your best bet to have that relief of pain, stiffness, and feel better, that you should ignore it. I just feel that all options should be explored and not just repeat back to where they were 4 years ago. And she's been on Humira since August, and her condition is declining. So the doctors, after prednisone didn't work in the first place, and then the Humira stopped working, the experts and the people who are in charge of her safety and well-being have decided, well, let's go back and do both of more of what isn't already working. So they put her back on prednisone and increased the Humira because clearly when somebody's not responding to one drug, we want to give them more of it. Now, I am confused by this concept. I don't feel it logically makes any sense to me. And by further voicing my opinion as a male and a father in today's society, I have been met with an absolute extreme amount of backlash. I need to woosah because another topic that's going to be coming up frequently for today's event is going to be based a lot on anger as well, as I see that being a common theme with both myself as well as many people around me are experiencing that emotion, and especially at the fall to winter time. This is when everything, those cycles, if I'm saying that correctly, um, we're into the release, just like with the plants die and they release their leaves, at the end of summer, all the spores, the plants and the pollens release their seeds into the air, so everything can germinate over winter and then begin to remanifest and grow in the spring, bringing you your bountiful harvest in the summer that you reap and collect, and then release and start the process over again come next fall. Yeah, to compose myself further, apparently. So I find it very frustrating that by asking questions, by voicing an opinion, by clearly taking a stand against what's in their books, the medical books. It reminds me very much of the episode of The Simpsons where Bart went and took all the teachers' answer books, and all the teachers at that point on could then not teach because they didn't understand the curriculum, nor did they know the procedures or the protocols to what it was they were teaching. They just followed what the book said. And so when you question the doctors, when you simply state officially that I am uncomfortable with this cancer causing drug that is being pumped into my daughter by people who are holding her down and injecting it into her thigh weekly as she screams in bloody fucking pain. It's a very traumatic experience and is not one that I wish upon anybody. Since this is a family show, I'm going to stick with I don't actually wish it upon anybody. And I remember I asked Ashley a few months ago when all this started to come up, and they were really insisting that she need to be on pharmaceuticals, and the doctors at Sick Kids look at parents who, and we've all heard this in the news, we've all seen it somewhere, and I know there is absolutely a stigma that needs to be respected and sidestepped when possible. There are parents who you hear about in the courts where their child is terminally ill, dying, and the doctors want to put them on something really aggressive, chemo, something rather extreme as a life-saving precaution, and they refuse all medical treatment and they say, no, 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 God will save my child, or something along those lines. We don't believe in whatever. To which the child then dies, and the parents are a major mockery in the news and media, to which nowadays, what isn't a major mockery in the news and media? But I asked Ashley why she herself is so against the pharmaceutical industry. And her story matched exactly what I'm going through right now, is because she started to ask questions. She started to voice her opinion about, if these things are so safe and FDA approved and whatnot, how come there is, Canadian oil being put in, like the oil that you put in your car, being put into food products, being put into pharmaceutical drugs, and the whole thing of preservatives and whatnot. Um, yeah, whew, it's a big topic, guys. My brain's just spinning trying to focus in on what's going to be the most relevant sentences right now. So, for anybody who grew up in the 90s, and this concept can apply to COVID or, I mean, anything really, guaranteed you watched commercials about every whatever 10 minutes, and there was always that one liability commercial on that said if you were prescribed such and such from a doctor and you were told that it was safe and you or somebody you know have died or suffered from symptom A, B, C, D, and the list goes on for the 30-second commercial, and they're like, you are liable to sue. So I'm so happy that if I die from something, I can sue you. And this has just been a common thing throughout history where things are pushed through. Clinical trials are based off a few months of research with a few hundred to 3,000 people. They think, hey, great, nobody died. Let's patent it, market it, FDA approve it, and push it out there. And then years, often it takes at least 3 years or longer before you can see noticeable long term side effects. And just so I can get the name correct, I've spent months trying to remember how to pronounce this thing. Morning sickness drug from 80s, 60s. That's what I want. Thalidomide. So, if I'm pronouncing that right. So, for anybody who's heard of this one, thalidomide was a morning sickness prescription given to pregnant women in the 50s and 60s. FDA approved, prescribed, doctors, safe, good for everybody. It took them 3 to 5 years to realize that it was killing tens of thousands of people. It caused, to this day, they don't actually know the number of miscarriages, dead babies, and deformed children that may still be alive to this day, that grew up with these horrible abnormalities and deformations based off the side effects of this safe to use morning sickness drug. It has further taken them 50 years to figure out what was so deadly and toxic about it in the first place. Now, although I've read all this, I haven't actually read what was wrong with it, other than, I mean, don't take that shit. But we're told by doctors that it's safe. And I've also learned that from my research, when something is considered FDA approved or safe, now this isn't the proper definition, this is what I've uncovered myself, to which also why we're on Odyssey and not other channels, is that there are side effects and after effects and direct effects that are documented, which during a trial, once they have documented everything that could be known to go wrong and they have it recorded and written down, they will then decide if it's safe or not. So when something is deemed it's recorded, it will give you cardiac arrest and stop your heart. As long as it's been a recorded side effect, it's a calculated risk. And they play it off as safe because they knew it was going to happen. Things that are deemed unsafe are substances that they haven't studied enough to know all the ins and outs of what it's going to do. And just because they know that it's bad for you doesn't actually make it good for you. And I really hope you're following me because there is a double standard here that is not talked about. And when you ask questions, when you give a mouse a cookie, if anybody knows that book, and if you're a parent, I highly recommend it. It's a great tale of life if you give a mouse a cookie. When you ask questions, you find out how little these professionals actually know. So back to being uncomfortable with my daughter's treatment being put back on Humira and even more Humira, my questions were simply around, is this the only option? Is this the best option? And I now am in a very large court battle to even have custody of my child because I asked these questions. Because I believe I'm coming across as the stigma of the parent let their kid die because God will save them or what. And I myself am very spiritual as well as religious. And I also know that there are certain things that, commonsensically speaking and logically speaking, you have to do what is right and what will be right in the moment. You can't always rely on faith. That's not a logical concept, although it is a strong concept for many people. So, because I question the medical system, I am now fighting in the legal system. And then we see the flaws in that system where you're, again, shut down and just ignored. I am a dad who has a daughter with what can be a debilitating illness. And for 4 years now, I am still being told we don't know what's wrong. She's not responding to treatment, and we don't know what to do. Her thyroid is now becoming underactive, which could be a direct result of heavy metal toxicity, poisoning, which could be something as simple as stop giving her tap water and all the heavy metals and copper, and brass, and whatever else there is in the pipes. It could be a very simple fix. But thyroid failure and thyroid cancer is also a direct side effect of the Humira. So trying to find out what the actual source is getting very frustrating, very complicated. And I just want the best treatment, the safest treatment for my child. I really didn't feel that was too much to ask, let alone being told that I'm now, shouldn't be a part of her medical treatment at all, period. And she's now being subjected to more appointments and more doctors and more specialists, and I'm being left in the dark just because I question it. Because I push these specialists. Do you actually know what you're talking about? And at the end of the day, they honest to God admit, no, we don't. We don't have answers for you. We don't know what to tell you. We don't know what treatment. And after the prednisone that she's been put back on and 6 weeks treatment of more Humira weekly, they're going to reassess her in January. And the doctors admitted they don't actually expect her to improve. Prednisone is giving her relief now, and she's very happy and bouncing kind of back to normal. And she's going to be stopping the treatment because she can't be on it for a long time. The death rate of prednisone is 11%. So when you think about that, if 100 children are taking prednisone, 11 will die due to heart failure, you know. And on top of that, the Humira has its own death rate, which then compounds onto that statistic. And because she has juvenile arthritis, she already has a lower life expectancy than somebody who, say, be at pristine health would have. So you compound those mortality statistics up. You get a very unhappy, very uncomfortable, very angry dad who wants some fucking answers and is being told no because you're asking questions. You don't get to be part of the solution anymore. Anger, guys. So what do we do with anger? Be honest, lost a vacuum about a month ago. And there are certain outlets that you can use that are more healthy. You can hit a punching bag or, you know, whatever, beat up a pillow, perhaps with a sledgehammer. But at the end of the day, it really does come to take a moment, step out of the situation. This is what I was saying before about become the observer. What if you are not you? What if you are the guru giving the advice to the person going through it? Your perception changes and it alters, and things become more clear. And when you're able to become the observer, you do get a sense of inner peace. And what you are able to do is you're able to analyze the situation from a viewpoint of positivity. And you can really see where you're able to be happy now and be happy in the now. You know, a few things that I am really grateful for is, you know, being on the prednisone, her energy levels are back up to what I'm used to. She is acting how she was when she was in remission. And this will give her the remembering. This will give her the being active and being able to work her leg muscles to get those internal stabilizers, to get her balance, to get her more back on track to being active. And once you're active, you can stay active and it keeps your body from going into remission in the first place. I still blame myself because I allowed this to happen. But at the time she went into um, not withdrawal, but when she began to relapse, she got super heavy into watching Sailor Moon on Netflix, and she really didn't do much else other than sit and watch TV all day, every day. And after a few months, they're like, hey, surprise, your leg's all swollen again. And by that point, it was too late. She didn't have the energy in her to, well, seemingly, to go and get that mobility back. And it's so important to take care of ourselves, through as best food that you can eat, through as best the exercise that you can get. And you really don't want to stress and strain yourself because that can do damage as well. But just being active, light cardio for 10, 20 minutes is actually so much more effective than a really intense workout where your body just gets really stressed. And then the next time it's time to work out, you're cringing because you don't want to go through it. But I really gotta say that there's been so much love, so much laughter, so much happiness since she's been on this new treatment. It's difficult to, guys, it's like making a deal with the devil. I know she's on these medicines that really aren't safe long term. They're gonna have side effects. And I mean, at this point, my job is to make sure that her body is healthy enough, not just to fight the source of what's making her leg inflamed in the first place, but to fight the chemical side effects from these pharmaceuticals. And it is really great to see that she's in the high spirits and up in the high energy levels to do that. And I do have faith that in many ways this needs to happen and it needs to play out the way it is, especially if being so far against the Humera that the doctors need to go through this treatment to see that it's also not working and it's not the solution. Getting functional medicine doctors involved, getting naturopaths and nutritionists involved. I mean, you really can't go wrong. This is the other area that makes it very frustrating is in Canada, where you have insurance, and I do know that in the States there's things like free clinics. I don't know much about it, and I know you can get insurance policies in different areas. But the thing is, the insurance doesn't cover the good stuff. It's like when you go to the store and you want to eat organic and buy the healthy food, the non-GMO stuff. It's the expensive food. And people look at it and they go, well, I can't afford to eat healthy. So they go back to their fruit roll-ups and their whatever marshmallow bars and whatever it is that people who eat junk food eat. I'm so far beyond that world, I don't even know. My thing was always sidekicks, the sidekick noodles. That was my weakness, which have their own round of chemicals and oils and preservatives that really aren't the greatest for you. And this brings another question that is one of the dangerous ones to ask, if you dare ask it. Why doesn't insurance cover physiotherapy? And occasions, rare occasions, on sports injuries, you can get coverage for physiotherapy. But, where's the nutritionists? Where's the functional medicine doctors? Where's the acupuncturists? Why doesn't OHIP, Ontario Health, something something, our Ontario Canadian insurance, why doesn't it cover the natural medicines, the natural treatments? The thing is, natural was here first. Alternative is the synthetics, and they've reclassified it and defined it to be completely backwards of what it is, and they call the original and the natural is the alternative. I won't even get into the conspiracy about how the staff of, I believe it's Hermes, the medical symbol of the two snakes coiling around the tree of life, representing, the serpent from the Garden of Eden, corrupting it, is in fact the symbol of our entire healthcare system. Back in the day, guys, natural remedies and herbal concoctions and whatnot, that was considered witchcraft. Evil, bad for you. And yet, when you look into the history of it, it's what the entire medical system is based off of, is this old, like, the evil black magic, toxins and poisons. And then, from the beginning of time, the natural herbal remedies, you're a witch, you're bad. Not allowed that. I think what makes the anger amplified is when you're asking these questions and you want to know why, you want to know who, what, when, or how, why. Not only are you ignored and shunned, but the answers that you are given, and this is the pitfall of all of society, in my own personal opinion, because you see it in every cock up throughout human history. When you see a mass shooting and the police are being filmed live and they're standing down and they're letting the shooter go and continue on with their day, taking civilian lives of adults and children and innocent people, and these trained war heroes and soldiers are hiding behind trees and they're not going in to stop the bad guy. And afterwards, there's a big investigation, and they say, "What the fuck were you doing? Why didn't you go in to stop it?" And they were told, "I was just following orders. We were told to stand down, and I was just doing what I was told." Now, the amount of shootings that take place from an authoritative figure point of view, where an innocent life is taken and the investigation falls into play, they all say the same damn thing. I was just following orders. I was just doing as I was told. I was just following procedure. Bart Simpson with the answer book. I was just doing what the book says. Even Ford, around, all the procedures and lockdowns, made a statement a while back when people asked him, "Why do you keep putting everybody on lockdown?" And his answer was, "I just get an email from the health authorities and I have to do what the email says. I'm just following orders." Bullshit. All little pawn puppets. Mindless drones. Nobody asks questions. Nobody stops to think. There's no common sense anymore. This is just sense. It's so uncommon. Again, anger, guys. Sorry. It's frustrating. And the people who are speaking out about it, is people who want others to not even wake up, but just think for your damn self. Don't just do what you're told. Don't just believe it because it was on TV. Don't just believe it because you heard it or even see it. Think. Does it make sense? Ask questions. What I learned through the last few weeks is, for me personally, the term muggle really does exist. You can think of it as the enlightened versus the asleep. But I mean, really, there are muggles out there who are just mindless pawns, drones. They just do what they're told. And it's funny because they'll acknowledge it and recognize it in those around them and question why the people around them are only doing what they're told. They're only doing something because the book said, or the media said, or the news said, the doctor said. And then the people themselves who are pointing this out, when they're put on the spot, their reaction and their cowardice comes back to the same thing. Well, I was just doing what the doctor said. I was just doing what I was told. I was just following orders. Shameful. I'm not even talking about, going out and being a big rebel or doing big acts of rebellion. I'm just talking about having a backbone, growing a spine, and taking a little stand and saying, no, what if you, as the professional, are mistaken? This is where the internet censorship comes in. Bill, can't remember. I want to say C-17, but I think that might have to do with firearms. The internet censorship bill, and you're seeing it flare up more and more and more, especially on Instagram. Good Lord, guys. The other day, as a musician, piano and guitar, follow piano and guitar sites on Instagram profiles, and one had this cute little game. So for other musicians or for anybody who doesn't know this, notes are lettered A through G, and then they repeat in different octaves. And so on a piano, they had the A through G, and they were numbered one through seven, and they gave sequence of numbers, and they said, only piano players, not that you can figure this out, only piano players know what this says, and the answer was cabbage. So I went to comment cabbage in the comment box, to which I was automatically red flagged as this is an inappropriate and racist discriminatory comment. Cabbage was flagged as a racist and inappropriate comment. It is now my new favorite swear word. Those fucking cabbages. How dare they? Ridiculous. And you can't censor it. All they're doing by the censorship and all they're doing by this, I'm just following orders bullshit, is they're just teaching adults and then children growing up to pass the puck. They're passing their responsibilities. And you see it in the school system, too. Good Lord. You see it in the educational system, the other system that I'm fighting against, and I'll go into a whole ramble about that some other day, is the kids are taught if you have a question, don't find the answer yourself, you go to the teacher. You find somebody of authority. You find somebody who has already been told from the book what the answer that you're looking for is going to be. It's all predetermined and it is all preemptively decided. And it is all just an illusion. That old math equation, 3 times 3 equals 9, and then 5 plus 3, 5 plus 4 is 9. There's different ways, different questions to get the same answer, and there's different answers, or the same answer for different questions. I was trying to flip flop that around. I may have said the same thing twice in the same ways. But, perspective is truly what it does come down to. And then the other point of perspective is being heard. And the people who want to be heard, the people who ask the questions, the more you're censored, and the more you're excluded, and the more you're cut out of the picture. This is dangerous to me. Why are they so afraid of people who can think for themselves? They make it act like, again, this is going to be some big, scary, violent revolt of a revolution. And people just want to be heard. We as human beings just want to be respected. And we're being told by our protectors, our judges, our police, our doctors, our teachers that no, you don't get that privilege. You don't get that right. Then they wonder why everyone lives in fear all the time. Because even the mindless pawns who go through it, they know. They know on some core level that they don't have any rights and that they're not being respected, they're not being heard, they're not being listened to. That's why the whole world's in fear. Usually people just fear pain. I mean, pain on its own makes people do some crazy things. God, you get a whole group of people of mass hysteria who are afraid of pain, the fear of pain makes people act even crazier than the pain itself. And then they bury it. They bury it in their addictions. They bury it in their opiates. They bury it in their alcohol, their video game addictions. Some people bury it with being addicted to the mass hysteria. I know people, I have family members who are addicted to the news. They can't go minutes, hours without knowing the latest chaos and turmoil because they can't function without it. Addicted to fear. Take a moment and think of the people around you who you can think of who are addicted to fear. How crazy is that? That it then becomes a choice. Heartbreaking. And you have the magical ones, the enlightened who truly just want these people who are addicted to fear to take a moment, pause, and look around and see the world for what it is. Because sometimes seeing is believing, but then you get the people who even see it and it's just too big for them. And they pass the puck. It's somebody else's job, somebody else's responsibility. What can I do about it? And there are people who are doing things about it. And at this point, it's really difficult because outside of sharing this knowledge, fighting against the censorship, being aware, it's tricky and it's complicated because sometimes there isn't much that you can do outside of the fact that knowledge is power. What you do with that knowledge gives you power. Like I said last week, you have a voice and you have a choice. Use your voice, ask questions, be heard, take responsibility. I think the worst thing that you can do as a human being is really giving your power away by passing the puck, passing your responsibility. It's not my job, not my jurisdiction. I was following orders. I was just doing what I was told. Ignorance and arrogance. Muggles. You know, the people who like their comfort, they like to be asleep. And it really does divide us because there are people who really insist that they're going to wake these people up no matter what. There are people who are honest to God fighting it and they think, no, we're going to stay asleep no matter what you do. God, I remember the Trump rallies, the Capitol raid. They lumped everything together as one giant conspiracy. If you are a Trump supporter, you then support flat Earth, and you're against Black Lives Matter, and you're a white supremacist terrorist, and you believe in aliens and tinfoil hats and conspiracy theories, and it's just the world's newest witch hunt. The cycle of mass hysteria repeats. Just gonna stoically sip my drink for dramatic effects at this point. This is where that past information that I was giving you about seeing the synchronicities, understanding that if you are of a positive mindset, you will start to see the synchronicities. You'll have that energy shift into seeing how everything going on in the world in itself in general is actually for your favor. If you can step into the fear, you can empower yourself to use your voice. You actually are able to find those things around you that can make you happy now. Now, and as frustrating as things are, using my own experience and my story here, I really do have the appreciation and the gratitude of all the happiness and all the love, all the joy that has come from, my daughter feeling better, being on prednisone. The prednisone's masking the Humira effect, so we actually won't know if increasing the dosage is going to make a difference. And it's very unnerving to have the doctors admit, no, we don't think it's going to make any difference at all, and that they need to put her back on prednisone because they need 6 weeks to figure out what to do next because these professionals are clueless. That unnerves me. But when you analyze, you sit back and you're able to step out as the observer, you see the synchronicities, and in many ways, I see that to get her off Humira, they have to prove that it's no longer a working treatment and that they're going to be forced into something more natural, more holistic. Functional medicine doctors, what I've been told, is probably the best route. All the good stuff that's not covered by insurance. And so many people leave it and they say, I can't afford to eat healthy. I can't afford to be healthy. My insurance doesn't cover it. They let it go. They pass the buck. They shirk their responsibilities. You don't have to. You can find those moments of positivity that make it worthwhile. You can step back as the observer and see the bigger picture. And it does help. And to finally get to the piece of anger, There's two ways that I have found help channeling the anger, perhaps three. You can directly route it into a task. You can put it into art. You can put it into cooking. You can put it into something physically and tangible. You can get a punching bag. Another method that I really, really like is almost the exact opposite technique. If I can explain this to people who understand it, is usually when you're fighting things like anxiety and you're fighting things like depression and all these outside stimulus that you can't control around you, you look inward, find that inner peace inside you. Anger, my own personal experience, only comes from internal, stimulated by external properties as well as the ruminating over negative self-talk and whatnot. Not saying it's easy, especially when child's well-being, physical safety is just involved. So I was watching Star Wars of all things the other day, and I'm not a super big Star Wars fan, but I did like and I did find calming and comfort in remembering that there are outside energies that you can sit and you can remove yourself from the internal anguish and you can focus on feeling the energies around you, especially if you're angry and the peak of the vibration is coming from you internally. Pay attention to the room, the atmosphere around you. If you're sitting in a calm room, pay attention to the calmness of the room. Listen to nature. Feel the air, the external air as you breathe it. Feel this force, this living vibration of vital energies that are around you at all times. Whatever you want to call it, God, nature, the force, magic. All semantics, guys. It's still there regardless. Feel it. Become one with it. Harmonize with it. And I know just telling you to do it is such a broad spectrum of how to do it. It does work if you sit and just listen. Sit and just feel something that isn't yourself. That is a really good tool for anger. The other one that's kind of a mix of the two combined is, physical activity, yoga. When I first started getting into Wing Chun 15 years ago, 13 something along those lines, over 10 years ago, my instructor at the time said that, other students in his class found peace of mind just doing their forms, their katas. So a physical activity, um, that of, qigong, tai chi, kata, physical movements, sports, where you're active and you're getting exercise, yoga, is actually a really good channel for anger. Another one is music. I remember I went through a stage many months ago where, man, I felt like the Phantom of the Opera. I was just angry and agitated. Oh God, this must have been a year ago or so. And it'd be like 3:30 in the morning, and I'd just be like pounding it out on my piano, my keyboard, and taking that internal anguish and the energies, and it's a form of transmuting it into something physical, and you're channeling it, and it's something healthy. This is a really good method as well. There are methods, there are tips and tricks, and in total, to be honest, the whole point of elemental growth is take everything as a whole, take everything that you learn and apply it every day. We're about at time, guys. Thank you all for joining me. If you like and have found helpful what was spoken about here today or in our other sessions, please feel free to refer a friend or tell someone who you think it might be helpful to. Another really good way to get the message out there is to leave us a testimonial and tell us how you've applied the knowledge that we've given you to your own personal life and situations. That will also help others as we share it know what we're doing here, and it will help others who are new to this process understand how we're going to help them reach their own personal goals. And personal goals can be anything from mental health to physical health to financial wealth and well-being. These really are universal concepts that can be used in so many different ways. It's just learning them and having the self-discipline to apply them. See you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.